500 Doors, your real estate podcast. Speaking with industry experts in real estate buying, selling, planning, developing, wholesaling, investing, financing, management. If it's real estate, we're talking about it. I'm your host, Kim Hayden, an award-winning 6- and 7-figure real estate agent with over 2 decades of experience. Understanding real estate is a dream for many, that we, real estate professionals, have the ability to bring that dream to reality while building better communities and being the change we want to see. Rafael Cortez, this is, first of all, you're never going to believe how old this guy is, because I'm telling you, I'm looking at him going, this is a guy who is in good shape and young, but he has a wealth of knowledge and decades underneath him in this business. Let me tell you, Rafael is a real estate broker, investor, entrepreneur, and organizational psychologist, founder of CEO Pulse LLC, and real estate investment coach, and a podcaster too. So maybe I can wrangle my way into his podcast with Wholesaling Inc. He became one of the youngest firefighters in Yuma County at the age of 19, began his first entrepreneurial project, and launched Netcor Transports LLC in 2007, a non-emergency medical transportation business. Rafael started his first business at 21 and launched his first company at age 23, and now has profitably invested in wholesale real estate. And you know what? Wholesale is not something I'm overly familiar with because I've always worked in just general residential real estate. So if you got a question, send me a question. But the reality is, I'm going to be asking a ton of questions. I want to learn all about this. So let's bring him into studio. Hello. How are you?
Hey.
Are we ready? Awesome.
Oh,
Okay.
born ready. Born ready. Thank you for
Born
having me,
ready.
Kim.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm excited. We were chatting before the show a little bit, and I love the story and how quick you were to respond about all your positive vibes around your partnership and your family. I'd love for you to start us out today, Rafael, giving us a bit of background, because a lot of people say, well, I've got this obligation and I have that going on, so I can't do what Rafael says and what he does. But I want you to share a little bit of who you are, because I believe you're much like the rest of us. We all have things going on in our world. So I'm
Oh,
going to turn it over to you. Sure, tell us, who are you?
absolutely. Well, thank you first off for having me on the show. It's great to be here. And yeah, I think one of the biggest things that comes to mind all the time is like, I can't do um, you know this particular thing might be good for other people, but it not necessarily resonates with me. I used to think that way growing up, and then my paradigm got shifted by actually one of my fire captains. I became a firefighter at 19. I got lucky enough to be surrounded by a couple of really good influences during that time that kind of shaped me going forward in terms of thinking bigger and thinking, looking at uh, first off critical thinking, right, and then looking at the possibilities of life altogether. These guys were, I mean, they had 20 years on me, and of course all the trajectory, the history, and regrets and accomplishments and all that stuff. So having just deep conversations was a really big thing for me when it started, when my entrepreneur mindset really started to get shaped. And I say that because you mentioned community, right? So I still hang out and I'm really good friends with my old captains, even though it's been 20 years since. But yeah, so I became a firefighter at 19. I launched my first business when I was 22. Started monetizing a year later, and I kept that transportation business for a period of um, I sold in 2014, so I had that for about 8 years or so. And then during the interim, I started doing real estate. I was able to pull some capital together, and I wanted to just, okay, where else can I invest? What else can I do with it? I was really afraid of losing, the cash that I was able to put together. So I went back to default, right? I used to work construction when I was, growing up in high school and college, And so I went back to swinging the hammer. I was like, I'm gonna flip a house. I mean, we go back to the familiar. When we're trying to figure things out, we don't really have a route, and that's exactly where I was at. I wanted to do something else. I just didn't know what it was. So kind of, real estate, found me that way. I did a couple of flips. It was a lot of work. I didn't know what I was doing. I did everything wrong. I broke even. I actually broke even on the first flip, so I'm pretty lucky to say that. I think I made, I don't know, about $1,000 on it after 6 months of blood, sweat, and tears. And then, and then my second flip was better. The third one was a little better, but then I started catching on, and I realized that I was buying these properties, from a guy that found them off market. They were not MLS listings, right? And I took a minute to look at the settlement statement on. I mean, it wasn't until like my third flip or something, and I started to see an assignment fee. I saw an assignment fee of $18,000. And I realized that I made 1,000, and the person who sold me the deal had made 18. Disclosure: I made 1,000 because I did everything wrong. It was like totally on me. So I mean, that should have been at least a $25,000-$30,000 profit when it came to the flip. But I mean, it's you don't know what you don't know, right? I got wrong. I mean, I was doing everything myself. It took me forever. I mean, anyways. So I saw this assignment fee on there, and I started getting curious. Right, I called the guy up. I was like, "You're telling me that I paid you $18,000 to bring me this house?" I was like, "Yeah, there was equity on it until I like crushed it." And I was like, "All right, well, tell me more about that." And I wasn't upset or anything. I didn't get mad. I was like, "I want to find out what you're doing." So he introduced the concept of wholesaling, and I started going into podcasts and just learning more and more and more about it. So that kind of kicked it off for real. So I ended up selling the business, and I went all into real estate. Like I took it seriously back in 2012, 13. So I started wholesaling houses around that time, and I got my broker's license shortly thereafter. And it just like real estate became the thing, right? I found out it's like the greatest vehicle for wealth, that we have available to us. Low barrier to entry type of stuff. And if you reach out, if you're able to have the right conversations with people, and I'm talking mentors, clients, and everybody in the space, the community. I mean, you're able to do pretty good in the space. So
Absolutely, and it's having that consistency. I do wanna mention I do wanna kind of, I'd love to really quickly review the word lucky. You mentioned that you were lucky.
yeah,
I believe that the word luck is actually a junction of opportunity and action,
yeah,
meaning that an opportunity presents and you take action, or you've taken action and then the opportunity presents. So, I just want people to know that, it wasn't that Ed McMahon showed up at your door and issued a check to you
yeah,
randomly. It was literally you put yourself in the position to align with the people that could present opportunity, and then you took action. So,
yeah.
I am of a personal mindset that things that are lucky are things that we're born to, right?
Hmm.
You're born in a certain wealth class or a certain education class or certain gender or a certain, race. Those are things that are beyond our control. Everything else we make, folks. Everything else we make. So, um,
You
you know,
make a good point there. Like when I mean, I feel like I got lucky, right? Going back to the fire department, because those were my first. I come from, my background is a single mom, so I didn't have a father figure. So they're really my captains. Were one of them in particular was a person who had a lot of impact on me. But what he took on, or what he liked about me, back then, was that I was a worker. I was 19 years old, and I was doing twice the work that everybody else was doing. I wanted to learn. I was doing SOP training. I was doing all kinds of stuff on my own. I would come in after hours just to catch on a training that I was curious about. That's so I was involved, and I think, yeah, I mean, it makes sense, right? The lucky part came because they saw interest. They saw, I
you
guess,
took
potential.
action.
That,
You
yeah,
see, yeah,
exactly.
absolutely, absolutely. Um, we have a lot of people sitting back, and the word manifestation, I believe, is misused. I believe lucky is an opt out. The reality is people like Raphael, like James Clear is one of my favorite. I like follow that guy like crazy. Atomic Habits is incredible. But these are
Yeah,
people who are
great book.
creating luck in their life,
Yeah,
right? And it's totally doable. And I love the fact that you just said that you are from a family of a single mother, so you didn't come from the luck of having parents that could give you money for your first property, or
yeah,
modeled home ownership or flipping or any of that. You've created those opportunities and now pass them forward to your kids.
yeah.
Um, I'd love to go into it this time, your what you do now, and I want to understand every aspect, because I know that you're coaching, training, teaching, you podcast and everything, but you still at the core are in wholesale real estate, and I'd love to know a bit more, because this is not something that's honestly out of 1,600 real estate transactions has not been in my realm. So I'm going to turn it completely over to you. I want you to walk us through what you do. What does your day look like? And what is wholesale real estate?
So a full overview of what I do. I own three different businesses. One is CEO Pulse, which is my organizational psychology practice. I do a lot of coaching, consulting, mainly coaching on real estate wholesaling. That's one of them. But I also consult in for businesses in different verticals for business processes and systems. Right. So that's one. The second one is the brokerage, traditional sales brokerage, and then the third one is Pulse Capital, which is my wholesaling fix and flip business. So I mean, it's one of those things you were talking about. I don't have the what it takes or the time or to do things when we got started at the beginning. That's actually one of the things that kind of hit me hard, right, as all these things were coming together, because I started working on a couple of the different projects at the beginning. The whole entrepreneur shiny object syndrome. And finally, through after a couple of years, they started catching on. So you started getting a little traction in one of them, and then it kind of started taking off. Then the next one, and the next one, and what happened is at one point I was working on 7 different companies, or building 7 different companies, and it was just a nightmare, right? So they all consolidated, and now I have a pretty good solid business model under the Pulse Group, which is the three that I mentioned. But at the end of the day, if I were to start all over again, I would definitely start with wholesaling real estate. It's the concept of wholesaling real estate. It's really finding a motivated seller, right? Where it's not even a distressed seller, because that implies that there's the problems with the property and whatnot. But a lot of the situations that we come across is just they have an unusual motivation to sell the property, and they, for whatever reason, if it's it can be time, it can be it can be physical distress on the property, it can be probate situations or whatever. They can't put it up on the MLS, on the multiple listing service. So what happens is, like, people like me come in, we have to buy the property, we buy it cash. And what I have, like, one of the things that I've been building out over the last 10 years, it's a massive buyers list. I have this buyers list of people that come in and then buy my deals, just like I bought that one deal from that one dude when I started my first flip. It's the same thing, right? And now what happens is I negotiate a property, I have to negotiate at a discount, and I mark up the price on that property, and whatever the difference between the negotiated contract and the price that the end buyer, so the flipper, is going to give me, that's my profit. Our average profit right now, just to put it into context, is $32,000 per assignment, per closing. So I kind of ran through that really quick. So if you have any questions on it, shoot, I'll try to break it down and get a little bit more granular on it.
Well, I find it interesting because will this process apply to, we're seeing market corrections already
Yeah.
across the United States. How can, and do you have to be a licensed real estate agent to be in wholesale real estate in the United States?
No, not in most states. There's a couple of states that do require a license. And then there's a few other states that require some disclosures. So you want to look into that if you're wholesaling, but you can literally start wholesaling this afternoon if you find a a motivated seller. If you find a property that can be put up on the MLS for whatever reason, you can negotiate that property. Now, when you get it under contract, you have vested interest in that property. So as wholesalers, we're not selling the actual real estate piece. We're selling the contract. So our vested interest in the contract.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. So then doing wholesale real estate, you do not need to be licensed, you do not need to be
Correct.
part of a board. But you also are not having access to realtor.com because that is part of the National Association of Realtors. Is that
Right, and
correct?
exactly. So you're
Okay.
not part of any boards. There's no fiduciary. There's no, you still want to do the right thing, of course, because we're good humans. But there's it's so the barrier to entry. I mean, what I keep saying is it's relatively. I mean, it's really low. You can literally start by driving for dollars, which is looking for distressed properties or beat up properties around any particular neighborhood, writing down those addresses and then reaching out to the sellers. There's different softwares and platforms out there. One of my favorite ones is Batch Leads.
Batch leads, okay.
Yeah, Batch Leads. It's almost like a national MLS. They tap into all sorts of databases and MLSs throughout the country, so you can still get comparables. You can still get seller information. You can skip trace phone numbers. I mean, it's one of the platforms that we use the most. So talking about pragmatics and that sort of thing. I mean, that would be one really good resource that would make your wholesaling life a lot easier, right? If you don't have it
So in wholesaling, you need to have the cash up front. You need to have a small pool of cash in order to purchase that first property, or how does somebody go and purchase that first property? Let's take it back to when you were 21 years of age, because we know like Brian Buffini, who's one of the greats in real estate coaching, he started when he was 19, right?
yet. Mhm.
So if you're a young person and you do not have revenue resources from family, how do you start in this? How do you get that first wholesale property?
You don't have to close the property with your own cash. So you don't even have to buy the property. What happens is that you negotiate a contract again, and then you get the seller's signature on it, your signature on it, and that becomes one piece of paperwork, right? And then the next thing is an assignment agreement. So you assign your vested interest in that contract to a fix and flipper. Now, what's going to happen is when you take that documentation to the title company or the closing attorney, what's going to happen is the flipper or the your end buyer, cash buyer, they're going to come in with their funds and they're going to close on the seller's transaction with their funds. So you're not actually using your capital to close on this. You don't have to have $250,000 to close on the deal. What you got to have is a signed contract and make sure that the numbers pan out for the end buyer, right? For the cash buyer. So there's equity, there's some, meat on the bones for them to come in, flip the property and still make a profit. And the way that we work those numbers is we make sure that they can make at least a 10-12% return, if not more. Right. If it's less than that, it's going to be tight to sell. But yeah. So as far as the coming in with money, it's you are going to spend money if you start using certain marketing strategies, for example, cold calling or texting or pay per click and that sort of thing. But one of the easiest ways, again, to get started is really looking at pre-foreclosures, having conversations with title companies. They can send you lists of people who are behind on their mortgage, 60-day lates, code violation lists. So there's so many different ways to tap into seller pools and find the sellers, so you can have those conversations and actually have the opportunity to make those offers. And again, yeah, once you have that, you go through the it's really a problem solving process. You go to the seller not with the intention or the idea to negotiate them out of their equity, but to solve their problem. When we focus on that, when we have a solution based mentality and we're having conversations with these people, it's you find out a lot of things, right? You find out that it's not all about the money. Sometimes you walk into a house that has been just piling stuff on top of stuff on top of stuff for 30 years. Now,
Yeah.
they're overwhelmed. They can't move, or they don't have the physical ability to move, and get their stuff done. What do we do as wholesalers? We come in and we provide a solution for that. Hey, listen, don't worry about it. We'll help you move the stuff. We'll help you relocate. The roof is falling. I mean, we're gonna fix that. You don't have to fix anything. We'll buy the property as is. So we're exchanging, time and convenience really for equity. That's what we're doing. And then what happens in terms of the finances, it's pretty incredible, because one deal can really change the path of. I mean, I remember when I was growing up, and I grew up very humble beginnings, mobile home, life, and that sort of thing. So my idea of making it when I was growing up, and I'm talking, teenage years and whatnot, was $30,000. And I would look at teachers that were making 32, 34, 40, and that to me was the yearly salary, right? You can make that kind of money in a deal. And when I realized that, it's like, man, that's a game changer. And then the ability to do it over and over and over again and actually build a business out of it, which is what I specialize in now, it's just, it's mind boggling, really. So,
That, and it's brilliant, because really it correlates a lot with, we see real estate brokers and agents that will have guaranteed buys. And what most people don't know, when that agent's advertising a guaranteed buy on your house, if we don't sell your house in 60 days, we'll buy it.
we'll buy it. Yeah.
What that is that in that paperwork, it says at the recommended, it's 13, it will be anywhere between like 10 and 13% less than the recommended list price. And I can
Right.
guarantee you their recommended list price is not your want list price. So there's all these nuances, because at the end of the day, people have to get paid in order to move that property through. But
Yeah.
people who choose um that guaranteed buy are doing it because they need a relief at one space in their life. They've
Yeah.
got too many things, like you were talking about, at one point in time you had 9 businesses, I believe you said 9 businesses that you were building. At some point in time, you need something to be easy.
Oh yeah.
We need something to have a simple solution. And I believe that as you're talking about the creating solutions for homeowners, that is such a great way. And I think starting out, if you're looking at doing this and you're willing to put the work into the acquisition side, so getting the contracts, then maybe the simplification of partnering up with a real estate agent that is willing to help you find a buyer, right? They can, if you need simplification within the steps, just to, and real estate agents, if they think that they can work with you a few times, you can find somebody who is willing to work for a flat fee and
Yeah.
go out and do your open houses and get that property on, further expansion of exposure. So there's all sorts of things. Well, you were going to say something about partnering with a real estate agent. I've got to
Yeah.
hear this. Go for it.
Yeah, no, no, no. So it is a good thing. It is a good. I mean, I partner with my agents all the time, right? And they bring me deals. We collaborate on deals, and some of the stuff. I mean, there's no representation or anything. So what happens is that they'll tap into my buyers list, and we do a joint venture agreement, so a JV agreement. But that's where really community comes in. It's I have hundreds of students throughout the U.S. and one of the biggest challenges or the things that stops them before even they get started is who am I going to sell this all my deals to? Like, you don't have a deal yet. Worry about the deal first, and then we'll, when
Exactly.
the deal, when you have the deal, trust me, you're going to find somebody who has a buyer's list, that will share that buyer's list with you for a profit, right? Like, it's going to be a JV, joint venture partnership agreement. But it's one of the easiest ways to get into it. It is by tapping into the community here in Phoenix. We have a big, massive community when it comes to wholesaling and real estate investors, which is a little different. There's a lot of coaches in Phoenix, and we're known throughout the states as like the weird guys that squat up, because we're all doing the same thing. We're all doing, like, we're wholesaling, we're coaching, and some of my best friends are doing the exact same thing that I do. So technically, they would have to be competition, but they're not.
No,
Um,
no, yeah. There's room for
no,
everybody. That's one
yeah,
thing I want everybody to think about is as a listing specialist, 70% of 1,600 real estate transactions were listings. They were
Yeah.
on the selling side of the transaction. And I would have people going, "Oh my God, my neighbor's house just went up." And I said, "Awesome." Because people prefer to go where there's more opportunity.
Oh yeah.
It's easier to serve, to gain notice when there's more people in the space or more opportunity within the space. So yeah, I mean, if Phoenix is Phoenix kind of an anomaly, a hub for this, or do you have are there other
Um,
major markets that tend to have
no,
hubs?
no,
Because
no.
I
So
think
you
I've
can, I mean, wholesaling happens throughout the country.
okay,
um the act of wholesaling, the reason Phoenix is an anomaly is because there's like a concentration of some of the most active wholesalers in the country, and coaches are here in Phoenix. So this is a very competitive market for wholesaling. However, my business still closes deals. This is my backyard, so this is where we do business mainly. We tap into virtually into different markets like Tampa, Atlanta, and a couple others places, um, but yeah, there's room out there. A lot of the limited thinking, I think, comes in or kicks in, right? That scarcity mindset kicks in when oh, I got a contract, but I don't want to share that with somebody else. But when we step
yeah,
back and then look at okay, who, not how, right? Who can help me get this thing moved? Who can help me through the process to understand it better, to have better results? Not
yeah,
how can I put the entire thing together in one sitting, because that's it eventually it happens. You become the machine, right? The
yeah,
systematic machine that's gonna be pumping out deals on a regular basis. But at the beginning, you have to really reach out and think about who can come in and help me with this thing.
yeah,
Who can I squat up with? Who can I add value to in their efforts, so they can reciprocate, and then do the same for me. Squatting up, right? Like communities, it's a big thing. So I was excited when you mentioned that at the beginning of the podcast. I think it's a lot of times it's very undermined. And if you want to, I mean, there's a great saying, and if you want to move fast, go alone. If you want to go far,
that is
go.
on all my marketing material.
Yeah.
African proverb.
Oh,
I
there we go.
love that. That is like, oh my God, I can't believe you're the first person that has actually recited that to me. That is like on
Yeah.
all of my marketing material. I close out so many of my internal letters.
Yeah.
Just released another book today
Wow.
online.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So, and it's all in the collaboration space. So if
Yeah.
you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go
Yeah.
together.
Go
And
together.
you're going to live 80, 90 years. And if you are fortunate enough to have children or people that you mentor, a legacy you leave behind, the
Yeah.
reality is that your efforts will live 150 years.
Yeah.
But you
Well,
can't do it alone. You
and then
cannot do it
and then
alone.
there's so much. Listen, so think about it this way, right? Like, one of my background is psychology. I'm always dissecting stuff and thinking, perspective and thought process and what triggers people. Is just it's a fun thing, for me to play in. But it also gives me a lot of insight. When you have two people, you don't have their brain, and for example, right now it's not just your brain and my brain. It's your brain, my brain, and the collective of the two, right? So that's one thing that you can't get by yourself.
Yeah.
Perspective like that really comes in when you pay attention, right? So your idea of real estate is going to be completely different than mine. Doesn't matter, we're on the same track. At the end of the day, like, we're individuals, right? So your experience in the real estate space is going to be very different than my experience in the real estate space. Now, when you consider that and you start to partner up, um, better ideas, trust me, better ideas happen just because of the challenge of critical thinking. Now you have to make things work. Now you have to figure out, okay, cool, how can we come up with a win-win, right, for this partner who I'm this person who I'm partnering with or JVing with, and me, right? How can we break it all together? And then what happens? You start to look at deals in an entirely different way. You start to structure deals very differently. I remember starting with just a straight up wholesale offer back in the day, right? And that evolved from need, because the deals were, okay, I got to split this deal. How can I make it work for the seller, the buyer, my JV partner, and still, and me? Okay, let's talk about creative financing, and you start shifting your strategies to grow with with the perspective that's growing along with you. So I mean, that's pretty interesting to me. It's um I think we're far past the days where we can, sit in a cubicle and just, type, work away,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, we've moved. Like what
yeah.
people, if you're still sitting here thinking that we're in the industrial age, in that 9 to 5, in that assembly line mentality, that is now dead and gone.
We're not
The
even in the
pandemic,
information age anymore,
the,
if you think
well,
about it.
exactly. We are back into the creation space.
Well, with
We
that
are
and the
back in
collaboration, it's really
exactly,
it's right now
and that
it's
is
a lot more important who you work with, than what you can learn. I mean, anything that we want to, heck, we have, Chat GPT. Have you seen that software? It's
oh, are
insane.
you?
It's
Yeah,
AI.
we use it. Yeah, like
Yeah.
we yesterday, 50% of. So tomorrow, I host 4 times a year platforms for up to 20 speakers, right?
Hmm.
And so tomorrow we have one for our resilient women, and 50% of the intros were all in AI voice.
It's insane. So
So, but that AI voice would not know what to say or the
yeah,
sequence of doing it because it comes back to the human creation. So
absolutely. Yeah.
here's something interesting. Is it Bob Berg? Bob Berg did the Go Giver and talks
Yeah.
about conversations. And conversations, I'm a firm believer that conversations lead to conversions and contracts. Without conversations, you cannot make money. Period.
Yeah.
And what's really fascinating is when we're looking at you, the listener, right now, there are 5 conversations going on within this single conversation. So Rafael has a conversation that's going on in his personal world. So he's got other stuff going on in his head behind him that, is dealing with his kids, his business, his wife, his all these other things are going on. So he's got conversation going on here. Then he has the interface conversation of us directly. I have a conversation going on over here. So now we're at 3. Now, when we invite the listener in, we are at 4. And when that listener accounts for the conversations that they are also navigating, we are at 5 conversations within a single conversation. And if nothing speaks community and collaboration
Yeah.
more, it's that conversation. It's understanding that there is more than what we see on the surface, there's more than the written transcript of this podcast.
Yeah.
So, I know it's crazy when you start digging, it's like I do not have a psychology degree. I may play one on TV at some point in time, but I am not a psychologist. But I love like anything around neuroscience and communication between people. Communication, I think if I was to go back to school, um, um, anthropology would be my space because the study of humans and what humans do.
Yeah.
I love human beings. I think human beings are the coolest entity out there because the capacity and the potential of every single human I've ever met is far beyond, anything that they would have seen when they were 4 or 5. I'm
Yeah.
very blessed to be in spheres like your sphere. So I'm blessed to be in a thought leadership space, but I believe anybody with the tools and opportunities that are out there can be in a thought leadership space. They can be in a development space. They can be in a solution space. I do want to ask you real quickly, why Pulse? Why the name of your company? There's always a reason behind the name of a company.
Yeah, it's I started thinking about the pulse of the business, and going to the fire department background and EMS, emergency medical services, and all that stuff. It just kind of it made sense, right? I remember when I was launching, or actually putting the business plan together for the first business. I started thinking, the health of the business, the pulse of the business is going to be this. And then I started, getting into KPIs. And this is back when I was, 20 years old, 21 years old. And I was still a firefighter. So, we would, the pulse, the life of the business, and it just kind of kept coming back. And it kind of, lingered on. And eventually, I turned it into the thing, right? So yeah, it's about understanding the pulse of the business that you're in, um everything that's going on around you. And I really do think that the hustle, for example, is the hustle mentality. Hustle is a season, it's not a business strategy. You have to understand how your business work. You have to get systematic about where you're headed, right? As an entity, as a company, but also as an individual. So
Yeah,
it
live
all
by
comes
the
back to the
yeah.
pulse. The pulse is life.
Exactly, exactly. A lot of women struggle with building business, not building business. They're really great creatives. There's struggle with generating revenue. The average female entrepreneur is under 50,000 a year in the United States.
Mhm.
Um, and it's because they're waiting for perfection.
Yeah,
And you work in progress, not looking for perfection, working in progress, because
yeah,
perfection actually is death by it is the definition of death, right? Uh, when you think about it, nowhere left to go.
yeah.
Nothing left to complete. It is complete.
I, I learned to because I mean I'm my own worst critic when it comes to putting stuff together, right, and launching, and I would sit there and then just get analysis paralysis and all kinds of stuff, right, just because I would overthink it at the beginning. What happened to me, I got burned out when I was around 20. I think I was around 26 years old, and that was really like a reset. Like it just click the reset button in the way that I was doing things. I was very Transportation is a very messy business. There's a lot of logistics. You have schedule changes. You have people screaming at you over the phone, especially when it's about doctor's appointments, because my company was wheelchair and stretcher patient transport. um, and if traffic hits, you get a car accident and you run late, I mean, people get pissed off. I mean, they're chewing your ear out. And it became a really stressful environment for me. And but I wanted to have everything dialed in, everything so perfect. So it would take me forever to roll out improvements, up until the point where energetically I couldn't handle it. And I started waking up and I didn't want to go to work. I was like, I'd be there for an hour and like all eager to get out. I was unmotivated. I got burned out. Like that's the short version to it. Um, and really what that did, it just kind of, you know, I took a little bit of a break, took a couple of weeks off just because I mean I was worthless. and and what it did is really, put a lot of light into what's important, into okay, what matters as you're building something, right? How much energy can you put into something, and what do you need to get back from it? Like, you have to become more systematic. You have to be able to roll things out and not kill yourself over the perfection. So one big piece of advice, and I got this, I can't even remember the book where I read it, but it was something along those the context of it, and I moved it around a little bit, but it's built something. Now I built something to 70% where I feel personally comfortable. Like, this thing is built to 70%, and then I roll it out. And I know that it's going to come back to me, and I'm going to, make some tweaks. For example, I put together software, that sort of thing. So roll it out at 70% where I know that my 70% is somebody else's 100, just because of the way that I operate. And I roll it out to my 70%. So, at psychological level, it just kind of, it fulfills me to that point, and I'm able to kind of release it and let it operate. Then it always comes back, and you're always improving on things, right? But that one little shift, just building something to 70%, putting it out there and waiting for it to come back, and then making the tweaks, to get it to 90%, 95%, to quote unquote perfection. It's never going to get there, but allowed me to move faster and get out of my own way in many senses. So.
They say in real estate, uh, under promise, over deliver, because most
Mm,
people over promise, under deliver. So much along those lines is just
yeah.
to get it to, you know, where you believe it's good enough to serve, and then you have room to grow into it.
Yeah.
So, what does community? When I say community, what does that mean to you?
It's everything. I mean, it's your environment, it's the people around you, right? I mean, that's an obvious one, but I think more importantly, it's the energy that you allow yourself to be surrounded by. It's a collaboration that happens. It's actually being open to perspectives. It's open to growth. Community is not just, a bunch of people that you get together in a meetup and have fun once a month. I mean, real estate people are avid, meetup attendees, myself included. Like, I like, that sort of thing. You learn a lot from it, but
Yeah.
at the beginning I didn't really see the value, right? It's not just about the networking portion. It's about, making it. It all comes down to that human connection. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, we want to be humans. We want to have that human connection with people. We want to, collaborate with people who are along the same energy levels as we are, the same, even thought alignments, that sort of thing. And it doesn't happen unless you build a community around you. And it doesn't have to be, this 10,000, 20,000 people thing. It can be really, a relatively, small group of people. If you're all in alignment, you're going to do great things. The energy
Yeah.
is going to be there. The collaboration is going to be there. The ability to support each other is going to be there. Entrepreneurship is a very, very lonely place. If you're a solopreneur or a business owner, nobody's gonna understand you unless they own another business. Like, it just is. Your significant other is not gonna understand the pains and struggles that you're going through, even if you explain it with tears in your eyes, right? It's
Yeah.
just, if they're not in the space of entrepreneurship, they can't grasp the concept. It's like somebody telling us, man, when I go scuba diving, it's, I mean, that's a beautiful world, and it's magical, and this and that. I mean, I'll okay, awesome, great,
Yeah.
but I can't feel it because I'm not a scuba diver. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's the same thing. So
Exactly.
it can be a very lonely place. Community allows you to have those conversations, allows you to have that outlet, and allows you to believe in yourself and believe that you're not the only crazy person out there trying to make it happen, right? um
Yep.
so so it's really it's really like the backbone of I think success altogether. Like, our
I
tenacity
Yep.
can take us places, or wits and smarts, and conversations can take us places, but the platform for all of that is really the community. Yeah.
I could not agree more. I could not agree more. That is, and yes, you're right. I think a lot of people think that I'm a little crazy, and I am the quintessential entrepreneur. So I get it. I get it. What is a book? I see lots of books in your background. A book you think that every person who's looking at investing in real estate, wholesaling in real estate, buying real estate, becoming an entrepreneur, what is kind of like one book that you think that really
Well, I mean,
helps or that you
there,
think people
there's
should read?
a couple of cornerstone books. One would be Think and Grow Rich, is a very, very popular
Yeah.
real estate book, right? And I think, if to me, it was actually one of the books that opened my eyes to real estate. Um, so
The cash flow quadrants, it's like, "Oh
yeah,
my god,
yeah, exactly.
how do you
Rich.
migrate how do you migrate right?" Right?
Yeah, exactly. How do you move over? Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's, I mean, it's a super solid book. If you're talking about the idea of self belief, which I think it's highly under, talked about, the idea of self belief, and who we are as individuals, and whether or not we're able to hack it, right, in a space as competitive as real estate, as competitive as entrepreneurship, as competitive as, you name it, restaurants, or whatever.
Yeah.
The self doubt portion of it is usually, it's usually the thing that stops people on their tracks before they even get rolling. But a really good book for that is Psycho Cybernetics. It's one of my favorite books.
Yes.
Maxwell Maltz.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Those are both excellent, excellent books.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's quite a bookshelf, and those are the 2 that you shared, so that's awesome. Do you play the guitar? I see the guitar
Yeah.
behind you.
Yeah.
Very cool. What's your favorite, mode of music?
Latin rock. Latin rock.
Ooh,
Oh yeah.
cool. Very cool. Very cool. So
That's my jam.
multi-talented,
Yeah.
lots going on. How can people find you, follow you, and engage with you?
I'm pretty active on social media. You can find me on Instagram, YouTube, at Rafael Cortez CEO, Facebook as well. So Rafael Cortez CEO is my handle. I do have a wholesale 101 breakdown. It's a course. It's a free course, so you can download it for free, and that's at reiwholesaling.com. And yeah, I mean it's a detailed
Awesome.
breakdown of the stages of wholesaling, how to get into it, and that sort of thing. So
And what was that
um,
again? Can you give us your website again?
reiwholesaling.com. Yeah,
REI. So real estate investment
yeah,
wholesaling.com.
yep.
So REI
reiwholesaling.com.
wholesaling.com. I hope everybody got that. That is awesome. I love it when guests come on and they've got something they can offer that helps create insight and gets people that first step. And that's awesome. At this point in time, I'd love for you to share a quote that inspires you and, sometimes maybe helps keep you moving forward.
um, Paulo Coelho. It's I refuse to walk carefully through life only to arrive safely at my death. Take risks.
That you know what? I'm gonna move over here. I'm gonna give you full screen. I want you to do that. And can you say it both in English and Spanish? You
Yeah.
do that would be awesome. I would love that because, I'm always looking for great sound bites, and that is beautiful.
Paulo Coelho. I refuse to walk carefully through life only to arrive safely at my death. In Spanish, me rehúso a caminar por la vida de una manera. I'm trying to blank on the safety one. Me rehúso a caminar por la vida demasiado cauteloso para llegar cautelosamente a mi muerte.
That is beautiful. Your mom did a good job. You've done a great job. You have been absolutely an incredibly inspiring person just to spend time with. And I encourage
Thank
everybody out
you.
there to step into Raphael's world. Not only was he my favorite turtle on the Ninja Turtles, he now is my
Absolutely.
favorite wholesaler. That is awesome. That is awesome. Thank you for your time today. Folks, thank you for your
My
time. I know
pleasure.
that your time is the most valuable, non-renewable resource you have. So sharing it with us is truly valued. Go out, treat yourself good, read a good book, lean in, check out Raphael. Until next time, this is 500 Doors. Thank you for joining us at the 500 Doors, your real estate podcast. Be sure to join our Facebook group at Real Estate Success with 500 Doors. Keep on watching and don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share because we all know sharing is caring.